Good morning. Happy Friday, June 15th, 2025. Here for another edition of Singularity Soothsayers with Nico and Chris. How you doing today, Nico?
Doing very well, sir. Um, having a very good time this weekend, um, and
Yeah.
ready to play around with a new toy that I know I've introduced you to, and I think it's apt uh, for the show, and I think it's kind of going to be our like new co-host more than likely.
Yeah, you thought we were soothsaying before. We're about to take it to the next level.
It is it's really nuts. So Chris and I were heading out to the HubSpot AI Summit this past week, and you know, a lot of people have been asking me like, "Hey, would you learn?" And I got to tell you, I think we both have the exact same sort of takeaway, which is we didn't learn anything so much as all of the things that we have been talking about got validated. So it was like it was a learning experience in that like we have learned that the way in which we are thinking about AI and the way we are thinking about how it's going to affect things and the way in which we are seeing things unfold is valid, right? And there's just something to that, right? So even prior to going out there, uh, one of the projects that I was thinking about starting, and I'm gonna actually like visually start here in my room and have always wanted to do for the longest time is to build a spider's web of like events, right? And I love the idea because, for one, it really opens your mind up in terms of critical thinking, right? Like you have to start taking more than one particular occurrence or event into account. And for another thing, it's just honestly, it's just very cool to me to be able to sort of discover how one or two or three or five different things affect each other and like how they intersect and what they do to one another. And so, of course, who better than to put these things together than AI, right? And I figured, well, yeah, I could verbally build out the model with Claude and then visually build it out on my wall so that I can have a better understanding. And even though it seems counterintuitive, like why would you rebuild something in reality that you're already building digitally? For me, it has to do, again, it's just a matter of like critical thinking. And I'm sure you're the same way, right? Where like you get stuck on, excuse me, you get stuck on a particular problem and you go for a walk, clear your mind or whatever it is, right? And then you come back to it and then you look at it a different way, right? So it's the same for me. It's like having that physically in the space, kind of looking around and looking at it or whatever. It's like new ideas or new ideas for intersecting points come to mind. And so in building it out, in a simulated environment in Claude, uh, made it pretty simple to like start it as a project. And the objective is to collaboratively build out this spider's web. And the way in which it happens is I give Claude a node, and a node represents an event in time. Doesn't have to be current, could be historical, doesn't matter. Just a particular event that's taken place. And there is no end goal. This is what I find most important. There is no end goal of we're doing this, with the intention of finding out this. The only like sort of objective or end goal is we're building the spider's web to analyze uh, overlapping events and to find like to build inference and stuff like that. It's pretty much it. So that it doesn't have this preconceived notion, because the worst possible thing you can do, especially when it comes to statistical analysis, is to inject bias by saying like, oh, we're trying to find out this, or we're trying to look for this, or we're trying to get to this. And it's like, if you do that, it's going to start searching for evidence in order to suit what it is that you are trying to figure out, as opposed to being objective and taking it all into account to find out whether like that's even valid in the first place, right? So the first step that it takes, and let's see, go ahead and share this. So the first step that it takes in doing anything, like all we're doing is just building causality. That's it. We're building cause and effect. So you insert a node, and we look at what the cause of that node is. That's it. We're not trying to do anything else, outside of that. So it's basically role based. I'm the architect. It is the builder basically, and it's the weaver. So it takes all of the direction that I give it, and it refines it and weaves it into the web. Um, Starts out with the node having to be verified first, and using like a confidence score in the verification. So in other words, if I give it something and say like scientists discover naturally exploding frogs, it'll come back and it'll say like, yeah, that's not a thing. I can't add that node. Right. But then if I say something like, you know, Jesus walks on water, right? It'll go and it'll do the research. And because it's speculative, if the percentage somehow reaches over 50% and it could somehow justify either metaphysical or perhaps illusion, right? Somebody just managed to put a glass table in the water and somebody walked on top of a glass table. Then it would come back and it would be like, yeah, okay, like I'll add the node, but the percentage chance is really low, so it probably doesn't affect anything else within the spider's web, right? Um, and so then, like, again, it just basically starts shooting through. Oh, so the latter aspect of it is it needs to also calculate the ripple effects, right? So it's not just that it's going to show me like, oh, here's what the crossover is, but it's also going to say like, okay, and based on that, it's probably going to affect this, that, or the other thing. These, what you're looking at here, this isn't like this is what it's supposed to do. This is just examples of what it should look like when it's looking for different types of data. Um, so, it's going to do just regular online analysis, then full web analysis, generate the ripple effects, and then give us, ripple 1, 2, or A, B, and C basically, or 1, 2, and 3, I think is what it ends up coming out as, telling us what two nodes like intersect and affect each other, as well as like the percentage chance, and then confidence score of like that actually happening. So what so this started before I'd even gotten out there. Um, and because I was interested based on this all kind of started based on Dario's uh, estimate of 50% of white collar jobs being gone by the end of next year. And to me, it was just like, okay, well, what does that look like? And how is that possible in the face of the balance? Right. So it's like you can't have 50% of jobs gone because whatever percentage of jobs that might go away, it's going to get replaced by new jobs that get created as a result of. Right. So it's like Walmart, right? Like you took away cashiers, but now um, all of a sudden you have pickup and delivery. So you took jobs away, human jobs away from one place, and you put human jobs in another, and probably as many people. So you actually didn't lose workforce. It's just this singular person may have lost the job. This is a really important thing to think about because I was crunching a lot of numbers in the last couple days, and it's really going to blow your mind what you're going to see. The first thing I looked at was job loss, and the projections for this year are that we will have more jobs than we did last year. Overall, we'll have more jobs. So it might not be the case in like programming, and it might not be the case in some other sector, and it might not be the case in this other sector. And there might be sectors that lose like tons. But overall, in other places, wherever it may be, there will be more jobs. So there is this thing to be said. So like that's a jump off point. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, well that's weird. So maybe it is that 50% of white collar jobs go away, but it's more that it's not that they go away so much as maybe they transition into different jobs. And so it is effective to say 50% goes away because it's the same as it's nearly the same as saying transition because for most people change management is like jumping off a building, right? Like, oh crap, I gotta learn something new. Um, so it kind of started out in that sense, but like also taking into account like world events, right? Because world events do have effects on not only on technology, but like whether or not technology rolls out, what the adoption rates look like, all that kind of stuff. So the oracle isn't just meant again, like it's not bent towards any one particular topic. Like the way I use this is quite literally to find out about what might happen next as a result of something that happened yesterday, right? And the best way to do that is to try to fill it with as many cross-referenced major events as possible to see what the blowout would be. So, like, started out with the LA riots, mainly just as like the first few nodes were mainly just like, hey, here's some major stuff that's happened. Like, let's just put 2, 3 nodes on the board to get started. So the first was LA riots. The second was auto loan delinquency rates. They're at a record high. It's the highest it's ever been in like the history of auto loans. Then like wrongful ICE detentions. So basically looking at like civil unrest, potential financial, not collapse, but like potential financial blowout. Uh, and then looking at human rights violations, um, AI eliminating 50% of white collar jobs. And so, like, last but not least was technological, like job erosion through technological advancement, right? So we basically just kind of started on that as a building block, added to it like AI capabilities, uh, UAE chip export, right? Like that was a pretty major thing that they were going to end up getting that. And something to take note of is again, it goes through what the description is based on what I told it. Then it goes to make sure that this is an actual verified piece of information. Um, Takes a look at how much of an exponent it is, like how long has this been going on? When was this like planned? All that kind of stuff. Um, so it's every 7 months since 2019, consistent 6-year trend. So even though they only sort of just figured out how to measure it, about a year or two ago, it's actually been happening like that, since the get. Um, Key research and findings, and then you can see the ripple effects, right? And the confidence score in these ripples actually happening, right? So here you have singularity like acceleration in scientific discovery. All right, so let's explode some minds real quick. Yesterday, I just got like super interested in like, okay, well, when is it going to happen? Like, when are we finally going to see the singularity? Like, what gives? So I'll show you an example of like request uh, and result. Let's see. Okay, so actually, this I just filled it up with this one this morning. It was great. There we go. Singularity prediction. Because at that point I think I'd already put in maybe 18, 17 or 18 nodes worth of information, a lot of it tech based. So I wanted to see like, okay, well, now that we have a like pretty big amount of data in here now, like what can we actually guesstimate? What can we look at and predict? And so again, I want you guys to take note mostly of the fact that it's going through a thinking process before it even gets started of what it has to take into account from all of the nodes that we've built, which ones actually lend themselves to what it is that we're talking about. what the factors are from them based on doubling pattern and capability. So it's looking at by 29, it can do serious 128-hour task, right? It's not so much that it's week-long projects, right? Because you're only measuring that in 8 hours. It works 24 hours a day, right? So week-long project, and this is like in what? I'm assuming this is per minute, potentially per second. So currently can handle a 1 hour professional task like very easily. Um, by December, 2 hour tasks with, again, like this is with ease. So I'm assuming it's within a second or even within a minute, but even within a minute to do a 2 hour task is nuts. Um, I'm seeing, I'm seeing this like, I mean, look, a 32-hour task in a minute. So what does this look like? It looks like this in a minute means you did deep research and a minute later it was done on like a seriously complex deep research. It took 1 minute, right? Like anybody who's used deep research would know that like even a 32-hour deep research, right, currently it probably takes about 15, 20 minutes, something like that. If you ask a complex enough question, I've done it once, it might take these questions are actually like 30-minute questions. And for good reason. It's taking a hell of a lot of information into account. Just the 22-second thought process on Claude, that's like a minute 30 on GPT. Right? Like I can guarantee it, right? So again, it's going and doing the search and then it's thinking about it afterwards. So based on the KB data plus whatever it pulled from the search results, somebody on LinkedIn asked me the other day, like, how valid is this? What you're doing, how valid is it? And basically, my answer was, well, it's thinking about it before it does it. It starts doing research on a preliminary. Then it thinks about the research that it did from the preliminary. Then it goes and does more research because it needs additional factors. Then it thinks about the additional research it did in comparison to the preliminary research. And then it goes and ponders a bit, right? It ponders, right? Like I don't even know what to tell you. Um, and while it was doing this, it was updating this node like the entire time, basically. And then thinking about it even further, and then it went back and updated it again, right? So this is what the nodes look like, essentially. Um, so one of the things that it was saying that was like a final piece for putting together the singularity was, and it's really the only, if you want to think that it's the only thing that's left is what's going to crack your head open. One of the only components that was left was, okay, something that can make itself better on its own without instruction, right? So so there was, deep research, revolutionary capabilities now being deployed, why it matters for the singularity, convergence effect of what that looks like. There's actually the third book that I'm writing actually talks about the great convergence and what that looks like. Um, reasoning systems that are able to provide intelligence to direct improvement, right? Um, and of course, like this was obviously the big driver. Like that's what's pushing everything forward and making people push so much more going, right?
Which part is the big driver?
The competition,
Right.
right? Just being in a capitalist sort of, environment and like having to compete, Britain, like even the UK talks about it. Like we want to be a competitor in the space instead of a user. And it's like
Yeah.
I don't understand that statement, but again, I was thinking about it yesterday, right? And I know this isn't actually off topic. All this stuff comes into play. This is what the spider's web's all about. UBI, right? And I was like, all right, well, what would it take? realistically to do this? Like, what do the numbers look like? And I think we were talking about this. It was after the show, and when I ran the numbers, I gotta tell you, it's not that expensive.
Yeah.
Like, if you took away and brace yourselves, it's not as bad as you think. If you took away Medicare and Medicaid, I don't mean take away, okay? If you repurpose those monies, okay, and added into that unemployment, that would cover half of what it would cost. So actually, it would cover the entirety of being able to give people $30,000 a year non-taxable income. Okay, I think the current level of let's look it up real quick. Current poverty level, I think, is somewhere around uh,
Yeah. And here we are again. Like
25, 26K.
it's a reallocation of government support based on the AI age that we're living in, and not based on industrial factories and, you know, 5 days a week, 40 hours, or yeah, 8 hours a day. Like that, that time is gone. Like
Right,
the job transit, like something, the coolest thing about this is like you're just throwing variables we know are going to have an impact of some sort.
right,
And like, even if it's like just somebody randomly gets an idea by looking at this, they got to be doing stuff like this already. But like,
I
this is what
I
we
would
mean
think, yeah.
by AI is going to help solve problems that nobody has solved before, because you can iterate and do decision trees and do all this stuff in a way that humans can't possibly like conceive of in a short amount of time. Right.
Right,
So either they go to PhD programs and they're researching like their entire damn lives to solve for these things, or they
yeah,
don't do it. More often than not, they don't do it.
right, because it's
Right.
too difficult to crunch the numbers and to run the math, right? You need millions of dollars and dedicated teams to do the research. You need hours and hours of people doing it, which is insane amounts of overhead cost, right? I always think to like the one of the easiest examples I keep thinking of is like a small software development team. A small software development team, 5 people, $500,000 annually for salaries. Assuming that you wanted to like really be an asshole about it and chop them in half, you're still talking about $250,000 annually. Don't know that it's that easy to come up with that kind of scratch, right? Like, or, you know, lovable, free all weekend, or Replit, like at most costs you about $50 to make a full application. Plus Claude, okay, it costs you $50 plus the 20, all right, whatever, $70, and you made a full application. You can definitely do it inside of a month, right? Um, so even if we were to put 30 grand as UBI per working adult in America, as one person, that doubles the poverty, that doubles the poverty line, right? You'd have to be a single mom or single parent or whatever, single parent of three, and it would still give you a bit of a bump. If you were a couple, that means you'd be making 60 grand. So you'd go up quite a bit because you'd both be working age, but whatever reason, if you were on disability and your partner works, good lord, you're probably making now 100 grand a year. Guess what also happens? Homelessness goes away. Not entirely, not everybody will choose not to be homeless anymore. That's a weird thing. But the idea that
Of
if
course.
you lose your job, you'll lose your home and your livelihood, it goes away.
Yeah. Forced homelessness
Right.
will go away.
There is a forever, and it's not a safety net. But even if it were, it should be. Why should it be the case? I don't know anybody who says like, "Oh, it's a safety net and can build it in a safety net." Why not? why should you let people end up like, that was the worst part about this trip this past week was like seeing what happens if we don't do this. And if you've not seen what that looks like, I'm not telling you that you need to, but it will change you. I think. I think it will change you. If you go to like really bad parts of Boston, if you go to San Francisco, apparently anywhere, I don't know, but it just seemed like it, you'll see what it looks like when society gives up on people. You'll see what it looks like when we don't have a societal safety net. And if we had a societal safety net of even 15 grand annually, right? So I ran the numbers and it was like if 40% of the entire country were out of work, uh, then it would cost somewhere in the ballpark of close to like $5 trillion, right? Actually, no, it was close to 4 trillion. It's like 3.9 something. It would take uh, something like a flat tax on income at 17% and a corporate tax of nearly 60%, which seems really high, but corporate, be what it be. Um, that would scale down, right? It wouldn't shrink, it would scale. Very different because shrinking means you make less money overall and your spending power stays the same as it was, so you actually have lost money. Scaling means both spending power and amount of money you make just comes down. Like we just stop being unrealistic about profits. Um, so so you'd be scaling down, but it would still be pretty intense for corporate America. It'd be tough, right?
Well,
But
that's where like
40% is not the actual, right? Because like I said, you're going to have offset from jobs that get created to jobs that get lost. And when I looked at the actual, or at least the potential actual through the Oracle, it looked a lot closer to 5%. So at a 5% rate, it was actually very sustainable with like 20%, 20 to 30% corporate increase and only between 15 to 20% personal. And I got to tell you, for most of us, if you bumped it down to 15% regular income tax rate, and I think current corporate tax rate is 20%. So if you bump that up to 30, and then like again, you took unemployment, Medicare, Medicaid, and put all of that into one UBI fund, and the rest of the taxpayer money goes into this set aside UBI fund. So basically, all we have is UBI. You wouldn't even need Social Security because we could actually just bundle all of that together. And I
right.
swear to God, I think if you
Sure.
bundle Social Security, unemployment, Medicare, and Medicaid, I think you only need like $200 billion or something like that to then have this UBI that is 60. I did the numbers, 60 grand a year, non taxable income per working age adult that doesn't, that is unemployed. So a
Right.
couple, let's say, would make 120 grand a year, right? And as ridiculous as that seems, again, like even if you were to adjust costs on it, right? For whatever reason, I don't really care. But even if we were, because we're capitalists, maybe we'll get really greedy about it. Even if you were to adjust costs, good luck. You still can't adjust them enough to make up for the fact that you will never have poor people again, which is just fucking phenomenal to me. That's I can't think of a better scenario in which everyone can afford to go to school if they wanted to. Everyone can afford to start a business if they want to. Everyone can afford to do all. Parents don't have to go spend all the time. Can you imagine the time you get back from daycare that you can spend with your kid? Let's say that you have a kid, that you can take a break from your job and not have to worry about not having income. There's no way that you guys don't see that and you don't hear that and think that like that's not the greatest thing that could possibly happen. Like one of It's not even a medical advancement. Talk about quality of life. That would be quality of life on a nationwide level. I couldn't like really, I could not think of a better short-term outcome than taking away, I mean, the amount of stress that goes away from that is it's insane to me. Honestly, it's insane. Like to know that like if you lost your job. Now, I know a lot of people are saying like, "Oh yeah, but you're encouraging laziness and you're encouraging people to not work." No. No, I'm not. Nobody's doing that. Look, you could not work if you wanted to now and kind of some people do. They don't work and they kind of scam the system and they get by. Not very well. They don't live great lives. So you could say that they're doing it, but these people aren't like driving nice cars and owning really nice homes and that kind of stuff. So I don't know that I would want to trade lives with them, right? Um so like their life will get a little bit better. Their quality of life does increase, right? But most people get bored after about 5 days of doing nothing or like 3 days of doing nothing. Like most people find it difficult to go on vacation and do nothing, right? Like by the end of that 2 weeks, you're like, "Oh, Jesus, I actually not that I really want to, but damn, it's just nice to get back to work, right? Like nice to go back to doing something." Most people want to do something with their lives, want to contribute in some way towards whatever humanity. It doesn't matter if you make a garden and you sell flowers or grow tomatoes at home. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Point being, you may have to collect, and that's the thing is not everyone will have to be on UBI all the time at once, right? So it's this fluctuating fund that will likely fluctuate lower than it will higher over time. Not to mention the fact that who's paying into it? Well, over time, the amount that's able to get paid into it will skyrocket because companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, who stand to make the most amount of money out of all of this stuff, are also the two companies who are spearheading the idea of, hey, let's take our excess profits that are ridiculous and put them directly into a UBI fund. Not even let's just give it to the government and hope they do the best with it. Like, no, we'll put it straight into a fund that is only meant for UBI. And let me tell you, if the government doesn't want to do it, there's nothing that says a private entity can't. There's nothing, there's no law that says a private entity can't give people money. There's scholarships all the time. There are grants all the time. You could throw it under a nonprofit, give it whatever label you want to, and do whatever you want to with it. It will piss off millionaires and billionaires like there's no tomorrow, but there is no law against it. I guarantee you they will try to, I guarantee it. If a private entity tries to do this without the government's approval, they don't need the government's approval, but you know what I mean. The government will attempt to pass a law against it. It'll start on a local level and then it'll eventually go up to a federal level. It's going to be like that movie In Time, where you are actually going to see wealthy people. I don't mean rich. There's a big difference. Some people earned the money they have, other people got it granted to them over time because of their royalty and their lineage. Um, and those people are tend to be the ones that like they're extreme assholes because they don't want anyone else. It's that like mental sickness where they just don't want anyone else to be on their level, no matter what, right? So those are the people who are going to buck the system and they're going to try to fight as hard as they can. And unfortunately, they're going to fight in these unfair ways. I still don't know that you can stop it, right? Um, you get enough people on WorldCoin and you give people just UBI and then they can invest in WorldCoin. And that's driven by the performance of OpenAI. So how are you going to lose money? And if you're paid based on dividends from from stock that you can buy in OpenAI as well, so it's not just WorldCoin, but you can buy stock in the company that's never going to go down. Again, like these things that are happening, and OpenAI is going public as a public benefit corporation. not as just a regular C corp or LLC or something where shareholders and board members can actually force them to do things with product and to do things with research. They've actually pulled I think all of their contracts that even hinted or smelled like military application. They pulled them all now. So Google's the only one that's gonna fuck us into the Terminator era. Yeah. So I mean, it's realistically, and again, I was consulting the Oracle about it. Um, it sees, which I thought was kind of a long shot, but it sees the singularity happening in late 26, like September to December 26. It was saying that like one of the things that again like something that's holding it back is like super advanced systems. So here's the feasibility of UBI, right? At 60,000 for AI displaced workers, right? And it breaks down the entire plan. So 70 million people, right? 35 million would be 50%. To give them 60K a year would cost 2.1 trillion. Okay. As percentage of the GDP, 7% of our 7.5% of our GDP would have to go towards UBI. That's a big number. It's not 2.1 trillion is not nothing. It's a lot, but in the face of everything else. Near-term projections, right? Country GDP altogether from AI. So this is based on like, hey, could we pay for it based on AI productivity gains? Just a 0.4% gain in GDP comes out to about $112 billion. And it's projected to be 1.1%, which comes out to $308 billion, right? This is just this year. So near-term gains this year could be 420, half a trillion dollars. So basically by next year, if its exponent is correct, it would be something like 1.5 trillion, almost 2 trillion. So by next year, without touching any other programs, right? Medium term, 27 to 30, 2.6 to 4.4 trillion annually added on a global level, right? GDP boost by 2030, about 4 trillion just for North America, right? So how would we work the tax system? Could probably generate 5 to 800 billion annually by 27. If we put a value added tax in place, 1.2 trillion, no problem. Why would you put that in place? Because again, people are going to be making like stupid amounts of money in the next 2 to 3 years. So you're going to want to channel that. You're not going to want to just have people just have crazy ass amounts of money. Again, already implemented in 160 plus countries. So it's something that's probably going to, again, harder to avoid because it's at time of purchase. It's not on your income tax. It's not the annual. Wealth and capital gains taxes, could generate 3 to 500 billion just from enhanced capital gains. Don't know that that's going to end up happening, but definitely if you have AI generated profits, again, if we put proper taxation in place, especially fast enough, then it really is possible. Again, you'd have a spend that comes off of it as well, right? And them, I just wanted it to be non-taxable income because that's what's going to sweeten the deal. Like when you tell people you're going to give them 60K annually, they're going to be like, okay, but it's really like 50K because then you're going to give taxes and that's like blah, blah. If you tell them you're just going to give them straight 60K, no taxes, keep it net, free income, whatever. Yeah, they'll take it. Right. And that's kind of, that's what you want. You don't want people to not want to contribute to society. Right. You want people to want to contribute. Right. And it's a great incentive. It really is, where you think that people would just like sit on their ass as a result of it. Man, if you gave me 60 grand and I was sitting on my ass, even after 3 years, all of a sudden I have like whatever, 150, 200 grand. So I'm gonna do something with it. Like I'm not, eventually I'm gonna, even if I went skydiving, I might find out, oh, I really love skydiving. So I'm gonna do something related to that and like get a job doing it or whatever. Anyhow, so let's say we put some emergency support in. Right away, we could start out with 30 grand, right? It's not even that bad. And this is what's happening now. We have about 5 million people displaced coming up, like end of next year. It'll be about 5 million people displaced. This is nothing. 2.1 trillion is bad. This is nothing. This is like a couple military projects, basically, right? That's how nothing this is. 27 to 28, we could actually bump it up even with nearly twice as many people being out of work. We could bump it by 15K and it wouldn't, again, to creep up another 600 billion. Now you're talking like full military budget, like full no, I think our full annual military budget is somewhere just over 2 trillion or maybe just under, or a trillion, or maybe just under 1 trillion. So this is basically the US military budget, right? That's what it would take. And it would give everyone, every non-working citizen that was displaced as a result of AI would get 45K a year, right? Now the funding for the first half, again, just off productivity gains, and which would come through legislation and taxation. So not touching that, not doing anything with wealthy people, right? Not doing anything with capital gains, just putting some legislation in place to take the cream off the crop, right? Second phase to bump it up. Okay, now we got to put a VAT in place, right? And then work tax probably just be an extension of initial legislation. And I think that would be if you replaced a worker with AI, you would pay a tax based on whatever it would be. And then phase three, if we were to actually take it up to the full 60K, okay, now we need productivity capture, and then we would need capital gains, which this would make sense at that point, because 5 years from now, you would have gained so much income anyway that, yeah, it will start to upset the system if you're able to, like, as a couple, earn 120K a year for the rest of your lives or whatever it is, and then pass that on to your kids, right? Like that starts to get pretty ridiculous. Or let's say your kid lives with you at home, right? All of a sudden now it's 180,000 in that household. That's a damn good household. You're gonna be all right, you know. Um, Critical success factors, obviously. If we were to do nothing and trade off no other programs, then we need about 4 trillion, right? So yeah, we'd have to capture 50% of AI generated wealth, which is, like, again, not, I don't know, not the worst thing in the world.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
Appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah, because I know, like, especially the two of us, we listen to the Moonshots podcast a lot, and on there are three to four of some of the smartest people that are looking at AI and who are doing nearly the same thing, like on a daily basis. They're looking at, like, what can be done and what might happen and this, that, and the other thing. And they talk about the fact that, yes, the transition is going to be rough. This doesn't smooth out the psychological transition. That is what is going to be rough. Monetarily, this problem is totally solvable. I honestly thought that the monetary aspect of it was going to be, like, insane and we weren't going to be able to do it. And it was just, like, not possible. It's actually very possible. And if you trade off Medicare, Medicaid, and you bundle that into, and Social Security, and you bundle it into 60, I guarantee you people collecting Social Security do not make 60K a year in Social Security. I shit you not. They do not make that much in Social Security. Good luck. I don't know a single elder. Most of the people I know who are on Social Security have a job. That's how I know that you're not making 60K on Social Security. And they're working at, like, grocery stores and stuff. Like, it's horrific. We have old people on Social Security who are having to work. They cannot retire. But if you were making 45K annually, yeah, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Yeah, you could pay for your meds. Yeah, you could pay for your doctor's appointments. Guess what happens to the medical system, by the way? Since everybody can actually start affording to pay out of pocket, insurance not so important anymore. Demand on insurance goes down, cost on insurance goes down.
Yeah.
Demand.
I think that's the thing that we'll work to add in to here. Like,
Oh, marginal costs coming down.
yeah, because we already know that like 60,000 in the Midwest is not the same as 60,000 in California, right? And that's why we
Mhm.
see that's probably more of a reason we see homelessness there, just because the cost of living is crazy, right? And so it's going to be very interesting to see how all these different factors, but mainly how cost comes into play and when that starts being adjusted down, right? Because that's going to have just as much impact, if not more. And it's just like a different balance sheet, right? That the government's going to have to work off of, that companies are going to have to work off of. Because when either one is impacted, you're going to see unnatural or actually more natural, but less accustomed like profitability, right? As costs just naturally come down. And if there's anything arbitrary or subjective about the systems that we live in right now, it's cost and price throughout the supply chain, right? Arbitrary in the sense that somebody somewhere decides a price on something and that impacts the rest of the supply chain. So everybody else has to make margin. And unfortunately, everybody's been, at least in the capitalist, society, everybody's got to get theirs. So if I got to pass that cost on to the next person, I'm going to almost every single time. Right. And
Yeah.
it's never in the other direction.
No.
Right.
No, because that would make you a good company. That would make you a nice guy, right? That you don't pass the buck on to the consumer.
Right.
So updating this and looking at if you got well, I know most people missed it. It's okay. I don't expect that's why we're here. Um the latest thing, so there was if you don't follow the alpha stories from DeepMind, you should, because they're very, very cool. There's actually a almost like a full length video actually about AlphaGo on YouTube that is very, very worth watching. And so why it's important is because Demis Hassabis is like these guys are all like they're after the same goal for very different reasons, and the variance in the reasons is what's driving the advancements in the different like directions, right? So Altman just wants to build like what he considers to be the best super intelligence, right? And that for him just looks like something that is a super capable assistant. From what I'm gathering from like the way that he talks about it, all the various statements that he's given, the blogs that he's written, it just seems like he just wants a very, very capable, he wants a Jarvis, right? That is also capable of like discovery and doing cool things and doing new stuff, but essentially a Jarvis. Um, Dario absolutely wants Claude to solve like the world's health problems and health crises and solve cancer and things of that nature. Like he wants it to be more of like a science medicine type LLM at the end of the day, right? So like Jarvis, like Dr. Jarvis. Um, DeepMind wants to make, gosh, I'm not even sure what should be like Dr. Manhattan, I guess. Like Demis Hassabis has actually broken into biology on such a level that he has done what has only been talked about in science fiction. He's actually brought biodigital healthcare into being, and it's on a level that's just it's unprecedented. So the whole thing with alpha is like alpha go played against alpha zero, I think, played against like various video games, right, chess and all this kind of stuff, and was extremely good, but it had to learn from other Alpha Go had to learn from other players, and it had to learn from video, and it had to watch and train. And I think it took like, I don't know, I want to say like 4 months or something like that in order to do it. And then I think the second version of it, or maybe 8 months, the second evolution of it took, I want to say like 40 days. And then Alpha Zero took 24 or 48 hours. And Alpha Zero learned to play from basically playing against Alpha Go. So the first 2 iterations tried to learn from people. The third iteration learned from itself, essentially, and was able to train itself that much faster, from 40 days to 48 hours. Pretty effing ridiculous. And beat the best Go player, who then retired for life, right? Doesn't happen to everybody. You know, Magnus Carlsen still plays chess. It is what it is. Everybody's ego is a little bit different. But the point being that like it was able to master this game that has an infinite number of potential outcomes, an infinite number of ways to win. And it now wins in ways that are so baffling that they study it. It doesn't have to train or play against humans anymore. We study it in order to understand how good it is and how it does the things that it does, right? So Alpha Evolve sort of just happened, let's say. And what does it represent? It represents a very new type of AI that we have been talking about, but not really suspecting would be here just yet. Okay. Okay, so that part's really important. Why is that part important?
Can you say it out loud for the
Yeah. Oh,
listeners
yeah.
out
Sorry.
there?
So McCaskill's century within a decade warning. Okay. And what that represents is basically warns about the fact of taking tens or hundreds of years of science, which is insane. If you took a century of science and compressed it to a day, it's extremely dangerous. Think about the science fiction films you've watched. What is always the case when the humans encounter the more intelligent species? The first thing that we tend to want is the weapons. And what's the first thing the species says? We can't give it to you because you guys are too childish and you kill each other. You won't use them for self-defense. You'll use them to kill each other. So they don't give it to us. Transformers didn't do it. Aliens from Marvel didn't do it. Wakanda wouldn't do it, right? Like, I don't care what sort of example you look at. Anytime that we were given a technology we shouldn't have, we used it for terrible shit. Nuclear bombs. Hell, napalm. Right? Somebody figured out how to jelly fire, so we decided to use it on like 5 different nations. I don't know that we ever had a good use for napalm. I don't think so, right? So not really the best idea to compress years of science into days, right? What it could, because of what it could do and what it could bring about. So the comment here is, once AI exceeds human abilities in AI research itself, we'll enter a recursive self-improvement cycle, creating wildly more capable systems. In other words, we'll hit a vertical. You guys do remember how like close, like we've been telling you how close we are to that vertical, right? Like we've been showing you where we're at on that curve scale, and the fact that once we hit vertical, it's going to go apeshit and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And then all of the changes that we've been talking about, all the stuff, everything we talk about today, all of the things that we talk about will happen super fast when it hits the vertical. Super fast. I mean, mind-blowingly fast. Every day when it hits the vertical, there will be multiple breakthroughs of insane scales. Cancer, shit, if cancer is not gone after it hits the vertical within a month, I'll be shocked shit. I will be beyond shocked. And the only thing I will accept is it coming back and being like, sorry, it's not a thing because you guys have poisoned yourselves so badly that you just can't get rid of it. Right. That I will absolutely. I'll accept that one. I mean, I don't know how long that, cancer's been around, but it couldn't be all of humanity. Right. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, like that's something to take into account, right? Once it exceeds human abilities to do research on its own. So then there was this Sakana's Sakana AI's AI Scientist version 2 passes workshop peer review. It's a new node that I added this morning. Sakana's AI Scientist version 2 became the first fully AI generated paper to pass peer review. However, the paper reported negative results, right? Like, so it's what it was reporting on was not like it was doing anything like super novel. It was disproving a theory, basically, or proving something, but showing like that. I think actually, so what it was doing was it was researching a method of making language models better, and basically proved that the method would actually be worse than what it was, or something. The reason that this is important is not that. The reason this is important is because it did everything from the research to the finished written paper. And then the paper was submitted. There were a couple of them. It passed a double-blind peer review test with an average score of 6.3. The acceptance is 6. So it researched, wrote, and submitted and passed a peer-reviewed, double-blind, peer-reviewed, studied science paper all on its own. That was the threshold. Okay. Compounding timeline issues. Alpha Evolve, 23% speed up in training algorithms. Imagine if you could read a book 23% faster. Imagine if you could run 23% faster. Add 23% to just about anything that you do on a normal everyday basis. What's that look like? What does it look like if you had 23% more intelligence? I'm not saying that that's exactly the equivalent, but I'm just, again, 23%, like nothing to shake a stick at. Again, doubling every 7 months. So what does doubling look like? Mogadot talks about this a lot. Doubling looks like you have 200 IQ now. And 7 months from now, you have 400 IQ. 7 months from then, you have 800 IQ. I don't know about you guys, but 200 IQ that is some shit. Like you are seriously solving global issues with 200 IQ. 240 IQ? I don't know that there's a single human being that could even fathom what that's like, right? You'd be on your own. It would be like a Dr. Manhattan scenario where basically everybody's too stupid to talk to on a daily basis. Something like that, right? 400 IQ? Mogadot suspects that at 400 IQ, you could figure out a way to plant a seed that would grow a tree where the, quote, fruit of the tree would be an iPhone. In other words, at 400 IQ, he suspects that you would understand nanomolecular biology at such a scale that you could change it on your own. And at that point, folks, quantum mathematics, God, it would be like counting stones. the stuff we do now, it would look just like just horrific baby level stuff. We would question everything that we were doing. Now 800 IQ points. My God, like we're traveling the stars. We might even have teleportation down. We're definitely talking to each other telepathically. It's ridiculous, right? And that's what these machines are doing. But then you want to disrespect the capability of the machine. Don't know what to tell you. You definitely shouldn't be doing that. Just messing around with O3 Pro lately and with Opus 4 with advanced thinking on, again, like I've got to give it like seriously complex issues that take a minute to go through, which, I think the last deep research I did didn't actually take that long. This one. I don't know. I think it took like maybe 5 or 6 minutes or something like that to do it. For this reasoning on.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to get Claude to take a long time.
I know. That's the weird part.
But a lot of this is a recent change in the way that projects are structured, where they open them up big time. Like my projects went from like 60% full to 6% full. So if you haven't been in Claude recently, definitely check that out. Because what also happens is it's transparent about the way it accesses the knowledge base as well, which is really cool. So it's literally like it's more transparent than it's ever been, at least for how it's arriving at the answers when you're asking it to research things that are specific, right? You're asking it to do web research or check your Google Drive or check knowledge base, right?
And at any time you can kick on deep research or kick on extended thinking, right? So, or you can like change the model type, and even though you got to go to a new chat, again, it's in the same project, so you just ask the same question in the new chat, but like with more advanced reasoning or whatever behind it. I don't know, man. Like at this point, I like when the newer models came out, I was initially stuck because I'm like, Jesus, these things are so powerful now. I can't bring myself to ask like even Opus 4 without reasoning. I don't know what to ask it, like just out the gate, right? But this project was something where it's like, I need something that can honestly take a look at decades and make cross comparisons from how like hundreds, thousands of data points across decades to give me accurate results. Yep. That's something that you could use like Opus with extended thinking to do, right? Like, even if you were doing, I hate to say it, but it's like, even if you were trying to like calculate distance or something that, across the universe or something like that, that would be like a Sonnet 4, non-reasoning level question or something. Like that's how, Opus 4 with extended thinking with what I've been doing. Yeah, it's PhD graduate and then some.
Yeah.
Hands down. Like I just don't know. It's not even a matter of I don't know who. There's no one person I could be asking these questions to that could give me the answers even within a day, let alone a week, maybe even a month, to go check through the amount of sources and cross-reference what the effects would be. Like even if I was building out the spider web, it'd take me a minute, even from physically, it would take me a minute to figure out like, okay, which events is this going to cross over, in what way, what's the percentage of confidence that that's going to happen, this, that, and the other. It's nuts to have something so powerful in your pocket that can do these types of estimates and calculations. I mean, this sounds very realistic. This is way more realistic than what I had in mind, because it's just alpha evolve right now. But I can guarantee you that if they have it and publicly announced it, OpenAI probably has had it for a month or two. And Anthropic definitely has it. Right. I can guarantee you that's the case behind closed doors, just not public yet. I think between the two of them, even between the three of them, I don't know that these models ever become public. I don't know that they do. The reason I say that is because you don't need that for an assistant.
Right. You
An
don't need net
assistant just
new.
has to learn from you, right?
Yeah. I think as we talk through this, like a lot of like deep mind goals, like seem to be whatever's net new, like whatever we can create new that's never been done before. And like once it happens, humans like just like have a seat, like AlphaFold. Obviously, like we're never gonna have to create or think about proteins like again. And that's the kind of stuff like when you look at all of what they're doing, like over in DeepMind, you start to like one like they have access to much more like tooling and people than just the two of us here right now,
Right.
right? And we get to do some pretty cool thought experiments and thought exercises, and they're like it's their job like to do this, right?
Yeah.
So that's where when you think about like material analysis and biological and like the way evolution has worked is it's kind of been like, like for your cancer example, like cancer evolves too, right?
Yeah.
And all the diseases and viruses and all that stuff, bacteria, that has evolved with us, right? So it's a lot of like, okay, we got you now. No, there's a different strain, right? In
Yep.
theory, we can significantly outpace like any biological evolution of any kind, right? Which is why we should get to the point of cancer just being like gone, right? Um, if our you start to think about like if our biological like infrastructure can handle it, right? I'm sure that's going to be the first thing that I mean that's we've already done that like in real testing. It's about like
Right.
there's surefire ways to get rid of cancer, but gets rid of us too. Um, and but a lot of those barriers like and to Megan, like Megan made another great comment that I'd love to highlight like when possible,
Yeah.
right? Like as I've started working with this, like ADHD and neurodiversity appears to be an evolutionary step that gets us ready for AI. Because that scenario that Nico just described, where we can ask all these questions as they come up and get answers instead of waiting until we meet the right person or can get a hold of the right person to then have a conversation. Like, I feel more enabled than ever just to go down these paths, Doctor Strange style, right?
Hmm.
And that's where, like, while you're like describing this, I've been creating maps and like visualizations inside of the Oracle project just to start to see,
What it
right?
looks like.
Yeah. And what different ways of visualizing it, right? And that starts to enable like a whole different level. So that's where you imagine the people where it's their job, they're doing all of this stuff on every level as fast as they can. And that's where from the outside, we don't see all the probabilities that they see, right? And there are
Right.
some decisions that are going to be like 50-50, 60-40. But if it's impactful enough, they're going to run it and like understand that, maybe 40% of the people will not enjoy it, but this is on the path towards where we need to get, where we need to go, right? Um, so it's fun to think about in our shoes, like how can we make this accessible, right? And what's come to
Yeah.
mind already is like an Oracle like website of some sort, like where you just start to
That's
open it
yeah.
up,
Yeah,
right?
I think so, right? Like just put it into because basically I would just transfer all the project knowledge to an assistant, plug it into a front end, and yeah, anybody can talk to it and try to make assessments on their own, and actually could. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I'll do you all a favor. I'll recreate this as a GPT project, as a custom GPT, and that way you guys can have your own conversations with it. You can max it out to O3 Pro, which will that'll do some stuff. And then what you can do is you can couple it, because I think now you can take custom GPT chats, and I believe that you can insert them into projects. Maybe, I think. Let me double check that real quick before I talk shit about something I don't know. Pretty sure I was using Harry for something yesterday. No, let's see. There we go. No, not yet. Okay. But you could, like, and now I guess you can't, because, man, OpenAI, just like, either, I think you can do Canvas. So maybe, yeah, okay. So I would say just Canvas your stuff that you use from the custom chat Oracle that I'm going to make, and then copy paste into your project. And that'll be about, I mean, it won't be necessarily the same thing, but you could build your own Oracle in that way. So yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, because I think people should. I think they should really play around with this. Honestly, like, it really is kind of like that. You can just play around with it and see. Just joking, but it's like, play around with it and see what you can have it come up with, whatever, with whatever event you want to add to it, or if you have some type of global event that you want to cross reference against all of this data. It's not, at the end of the day, it's a matter of, like, putting more information into it and then asking it ripple effect based questions. Right. So, like, I've put all of this information into it, global occurrences, UAE stuff, like all of it, to be able to ask it things about, like, singularity. Because I can't ask it about singularity right out the gate. It couldn't ever do enough singular research in order to do that. I could do several deep researches, and even then, like, mix all the information together. Like, I'd still create a project and still mash all the stuff together, because you have to look at it from so many different angles. And there's even been times where I've asked the Oracle and said, like, hey, what additional information would you need to know in order to make a better estimate of XYZ? So that's something that you can do too, is you can grab the custom GPT and say there's something you want to know about. It's already going to know, like, whatever I'm going to put into it here. But then you can say, like, what would you need to know based on what you already know already, in order to give me what I like to go for is, like, you can go for, like, a 1 month or maybe like a 3 month. I think 3 month is probably the most accurate window that you should shoot for. Because that's a pretty good guesstimate. If you're trying to find something in the next year, I think you could probably go for a 1 month guesstimate and be pretty close. And I honestly, like, the more I feed stuff into it and see what the outcome is, it really does, like, start to align with, like, where I see things going. Which, I got to be honest with you, I haven't been wrong about what's happened or transitioned yet. I've only been wrong about how soon it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I kid you not. I go back 2 years, 2.5 years, go back to my first, like, GPT with me videos, all the way leading up to when me and Chris started doing stuff together on the morning show that we did with me, Chris, and George, all the way up until today, right? And look at the titles of the episodes, look at some of the details of the episodes, and you'll see all of these things that we've talked about, like, months before they ever happened. In almost every case, months before they happened. And I was not using the Oracle back then. So, like I said, this past week was validation. This tool for me is extreme validation, because it's, like, again, like, taking everything into account, even things that I would not take into account. Right. So even for me to guess about the singularity, I kind of do it automatically. I don't take geopolitical into my thought process when I guess about technological advance, but geopolitical affects it, right? So it can even go through and tell me the ripple effects, but then it can say, okay, it's also connected to these other nodes, right? So AI's capability for doubling, accelerates that, and it has a confidence level. How, like, does it do that or not, right? Zero marginal cost. So like, this is obviously it's the cause of it, but marginal cost, right, is how much more it costs you to make the additional product than the first one that you made, right? So you make an initial one, and then every time you got to replicate it, that's what your marginal cost is, right? So that's why you'll hear people like, oh, if we can shave, half a gram off the weight of this thing that we transport, and we transport 50,000 units of it by boat or something like that, and that'll take off XYZ marginal cost, right? So it cuts down on how much more it's going to cost us to produce, because we cut down on the amount of shipping or the amount of material needed as well to create the thing. So I love that, right? So the effect of what marginal cost does, right? Traditional profit-based business models become unsustainable because margins just start to collapse. So you can no longer charge people for things that you have excess of, essentially. Shifting of ownership, basically. Massive deflation of pricing. So to a lot of people were saying like, yeah, you're going to have 60K a year, but then prices are going to go up. They can't. All the advance is happening at the same time. This is another thing that I've been like echoing, is just everything, everywhere, all at once. Right? It is. The reason that like I don't do what you think what you want to. The reason the economy isn't tanking right now is because of AI. And it's not because, the AI sector, just the AI sector. No, the technology affects every business, every single business, and every single business that adopts sees a minimum 25% revenue increase in the same year. Minimum. You could be the shittiest business type and you will still see a 0.25% increase in revenue in the same year. That's nuts. So yeah, the economy is going to sustain because that 25% also goes all the way up to 80%. McKinsey's report from last year, adoption was anywhere between 3-to-1 or 8-to-1 in terms of dollars invested to dollars earned. Earned to invested, $3 earned for every one invested, or $8 earned for every one invested, depending on the type of business you were and what your competition is like and all that kind of thing, right? There is no lose. There is only gain. And the technology only makes things more efficient, so you'll never end up costing more to do things the more that you implement it, right? If you make a product, you will eventually use this AI to design the best possible version of your product, and that'll be the end of that. Until like a new material gets discovered, and then you'll add that in, and then you'll make a better version based on the new material. But that's about it. It will still come up with the best potential design. For once, I don't know how long it's been. For once, since since pretty much the invention of the drone, there is finally a new design, and oddly enough, based on science fiction. I mean, it is based on real life, but it's definitely a crossover. So I say it's a crossover because it's based on the hummingbird. And the only thing in science fiction I've seen that is similar to it is the sand patrollers in Dune, right? That also have hummingbird wings. They don't move like a bird. They just move up and down, right? Hummingbird's wings just move up and down, yet it has this insane agility, right? To be able to like boop right in on a spot and then boop right out of there like lightning. So that's basically what's being like tested now, is this sort of like hummingbird style drone design. Okay, but it took, God, how long? And then what ended up being the most awesome design for it? Still something out of nature. The initial drone design is based on nature. It's based on the hip shape of flying squirrels. That's what all current drones, all quad rotors, right? Quad rotor is the most effective drone out there right now, and it's based on an animal. So, like again, like the advances you make with this stuff, they're not like little bitty advances. And I can guarantee you that quad rotor drones will still be around when these hummingbird drones come out, because there's going to be like differences in control and that kind of thing. The hummingbird drones will probably be more deadly than the quad rotors, because of the fact that you could probably just make a hummingbird drone with, like, I don't know, a pipe bomb strapped to it or something, right? Like it's teeny tiny by comparison per se. I don't know. We'll see. Um, how could this get worse? China's got nuclear batteries. They're not weapons grade nuclear, right? But and then I'm sure when I said that, the first thing that came to your mind was, oh God, we already have enough radiation from the microwaves and the cell phones. They're non-radiation batteries. They don't emit radiation. So they are safe to use, 50-year long lasting, sustainable energy batteries. Yay. They're not like super, super powerful yet. It's like 3 volts or something like that. I think out of like a battery the size of a quarter, right? So I'm sure if you stack enough of those quarters together, it's still less weight than a AA battery and can probably power more than a AA battery for 50 years. So that TV remote, you'll throw the TV away before the remote runs out of batteries. You'll never have to plug your phone in. You'll never have to plug your phone in. You'll never have to charge your laptop. Are you guys getting it yet? Like, is it starting to click? Like, how awesome this is? I hope so, because that, like, it's also going to take the people to make this happen. Because we are going to have to force the government to stop doing things the way that it has been doing them, and to start moving towards this post-scarcity type world that we should and need to be living in. It's so super important for like just for us as a species to continue forward. It's so super important. Like with the advances that we're going to make, geographic production advances disappears. Everything can be made anywhere. Imagine. What does this look like? I'll show you what it looks like here. New China, dark factory. I don't pull these things out of my head. Sell 1 cell phone per minute. Operates 24/7, no breaks, no shifts. It's a dark factories. In case you didn't know, there are now factories. You think Amazon is weird. There are now factories that operate 24/7 with like practically no humans. All the humans do is watch, and the machines do everything. Okay. How does it work without humans? It works without humans because like the machines are actually designed to do so. The product is actually sort of designed around what the machine capability is as well. So it can, I'm sorry, I was off. It's 1 phone per second.
Have you added this as a note?
No, but I'm about to. Right?
Because this is the kind of thing like where it's not uncommon to hear, like we hear people say like we can't even imagine impact, like different levels of impact. And when you first told me about the dark factory, it's like just imagine all of the waste created by
You have to add it.
like OSHA in terms of just protecting humans. Like, it's not waste in terms of like humans need to be protected if they're going to be doing stuff. There needs to be rules and regulation. But once you remove them, now you don't need that part. And like the light energy that saved, like the emergency energy, the emergency system's energy that is saved. Like, we cannot even fathom that right now,
No.
right? Because we actually haven't seen dark factories like work, right? We don't know how human out of the loop we can get in a lot of these spaces. But like, and since we haven't gotten there, we haven't designed the infrastructure to support those things. And that's where, like, once you start to remove it and you start from scratch, like, okay, if humans are never around to get hit in the head, like, we can go inch by inch to get as close as possible. I mean, look at how close these things are.
Hey guys, what happens to healthcare costs when less people are dying on the job or being injured on the job or being injured as a result of their job? Like you got back pain or chronic pain or whatever. What happens to healthcare costs when you don't have to do that? They go down tremendously.
Man, the amount of effort and cost that goes into the simple sign of X number of days since our last accident, like, and how that is a top, like, I want to work there variable.
Yeah.
When you see that people care about that and put and invest time and energy
Yeah, this is the cell
into
phone
that,
maker.
into those kinds of systems.
Lights out manufacturing, mind you. The reason they call them dark factories is because you don't need as many lights in them. So even the amount of electricity that you're drawing doesn't even out, you know what I mean, with the amount of machines that you have in there. But, you know, it certainly helps. Do you know, like, the biggest drawback to cell phone makers is supply chain? Being able to produce them fast enough. That was the biggest hindrance to Apple back in the day, was the fact that it came up with amazing phones, but took so long to produce them, right? And it was so like so difficult too, right? You have to have people by hand putting these things together. Now you don't. So you produce them a hell of a lot faster. The throughput is ridiculous, and no human overhead, no insurance, like the costs are gone there, and the timing is insanely faster. I mean, if you're talking about what was it, like 10 million a day or something?
Yeah,
10 million high-end smartphones, right?
annually.
Annually. That's ridiculous, man. Right? So you
In
got
one
whatever, three
factory.
factories? Yeah. You
Right.
got 3, 4 factories, you got 30, 40 million phones in a year. That I think that takes care of, you know what I mean? Like you probably only need like 5, 6 factories all together or something. And those things I'm sure will end up working just like TSMC, just like the semiconductor factories, where you send them your schematic for the phone and they print your phone for you. Right? So literally distribution issues and again, marginal cost on that, my God, that has to have dropped through the floor. There's no way. You know why? Because ROI, right? Again, marginal cost, right? So it costs you a lot up front. Let's say that you're running an all AI burger joint. I think let's see what the you know what? I think you can just ask straight out. Let's find out here real quick. You know, chat been slow quite a bit lately.
Us too, Megan. Would be interesting to see what's going on behind closed doors.
Oh God, yeah. I'd
Uh,
I'd pay a lot for it.
and that's why I go to events, or that's why I want to be at events like AI Summit. Because the best we can do is understand like goals, missions, and their thought processes, right? That's part of my favorite part of watching any kind of interviews from founders is finding ways to understand that part, like, and then match them across like their behavior and what's happening. But you can get to a point where like Dario's, to me at least, he's very consistent, like in the things that he says publicly, um, and how it feels like between him publicly, like in public interviews, and my end user experience with
Mhm.
Claude and the difference between Claude and GPT and Gemini, like it doesn't take much. You don't have to read into it very far. Like when you like, I feel what he's saying. And even at the AI Summit, there was somebody from the team talking about Claude as a virtual collaborator, right? That
Yep.
was the only session that had the words virtual collaborator in it, right? Everybody else is talking about agents, agentic, right? They just see this differently, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then when the next thing comes out, like this transparency on this new level, like you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Coming from these guys. Um, but yeah, that can give you a window, like just to think about what's possible, and then we can use, like, we're gonna start. I mean, we're already showing, like, start to use things like this oracle here, uh,
GTM strategies.
to just think about what's possible. Like awareness of what's possible is such a shift for most mindsets, because instead of thinking about what is and what's working right now, when you know it's moving week to week and about day to day at some points, like you're not ready, like you can't even handle it, right? And so many people prevent themselves from even thinking about, like, oh, I got to focus on this. Again, that was one word we did not hear very often, if at all, at the AI Summit, right?
Yep.
Yeah, these events. And as I was
Yeah.
like coming back, like I didn't even know about the Databricks thing until
Right.
like we were in the we were in the lift, and the guy was asking like, "Oh, which AI Summit?" I'm like, "What do you mean, which AI Summit?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in San Francisco, so I guess." But same week, it's like, wow, is that where we're at? Multiple AI
Mhm.
summits in the same week. But yeah, there's one much bigger one, right?
Right.
Uh,
And I can see
and
that. I could
yeah,
see like probably 2 or 3, to be honest with you.
well, that's where like in so often like there's a big one, and then any kind of VIP or specific like private events start to pop up around them, because people can like better justify the travel, like if they're coming in town with a big one, right? But it was interesting. I was like, yeah, maybe I could see me next year, like putting that on the schedule. Like, let's get to. It's been interesting. Even it took me a while to add to my title or add to my headline. I don't even know if I've done it on the headline. I've done it here, right? Where it's like it used to be just CX and RevOps, and now I've got. It took people coming to me specifically with AI questions to be like, oh yeah, maybe I should have AI like in there too, as something I can coach with. And it's just everything's moving so fast. But that willingness to think like and give ourselves some credit, like when you can keep up. I mean, that's why I lean into that. Like I'm going to try and keep up. And if it really is a situation where I want to, help other people keep up, it's remembering all the things that we can be doing individually, like just to create awareness, right? So what are we doing with Gemini here?
So I'm pitting Gemini, or I'm pitting an AI burger joint up against a traditional model burger joint, right? Because there is such a thing like Cali Burger, right? Is a pretty much, it's not all AI. There's one person behind the counter. Um, but it's, that's what it would be. It would be like one staff member behind the counter, right? So just going with that and accounting for nothing else, like not even time changes or anything like that, not accounting for pay raises, which you would obviously have to give to your staff. You're literally saving half. So you are making twice as much on a franchise burger joint by using AI staff over human staff. Now, how does that break down in the long run? Do you make twice as much? No, because the government should be taxing you like an additional 35 or 40% because you're not using human staff. So now you probably are only going to make, rightly so, maybe 20% or maybe 25% more. Okay. But that's enough. The whole thing of greed is going away naturally over a long term. So deal with it now because it's going to be harder the more you try to hold out. Right.
Well, that's why
That's definitely the legislation. And if you do it that way, right? If you do it where this business, yeah, okay, you're going to make twice as much, fine. Since you're going to make 100% more, you have to give up at least 50% of that, right? So no big deal. Like I don't see an issue with it.
well, that's where like like there's so many impacts of abundance. For it's like greed, like what are you gonna be greedy for? Like it's not gonna bring you any value, like mentally, physically, emotionally, like in in lots of different ways. Again, like there's so many ways to slice this, but it always a lot of it comes back to scarcity versus abundance. And you know, when that's where when abundance happens or is happening, like more than you, like is not a thing. Like it's just not. Like,
This is what That's what I mean. Economic power shifts from the producers to the platform infrastructure owners. This was this was my principal question. Amjad Masad from Replit was at this summit, and my principal question for him was: is this the case? Is it going to be the case that he's going to, with Replit, because he's basically got the magic wand of being a software infrastructure platform? In other words, to create software, right, you're going to want to use Replit or you're going to use Lovable, but they basically become infrastructure. They are the platform on which other people build things. OpenAI, Anthropic, infrastructure. Might as well consider these companies to be internet because that's how bedrock they are, right? So instead of Microsoft, instead of Amazon, instead of Google, instead of Comcast, it's now OpenAI, right? Public benefit corporation. It's now Anthropic, public benefit corporation or nonprofit. Now, Replit, for profit company. Do I see Amjad, bowing to the, or no, I think, I don't know if Replit is, I think it might still be private. Yep, still private. So, but the stock you could privately invest at $25 a share, which is really not bad. That'll skyrocket to 100 by the end of the year. Even OpenAI, you can invest in it if you want to. It is going to offer shares as a public benefit corporation, so you can actually invest into it. So these companies, again, they have a very different mindset. They are super Star Trek fans. They want what's best for the world. Dario and his sister have said repeatedly in multiple interviews, same thing for Sam. They want to make the world a better place. I don't know the last time. I've never heard Bill Gates say that. And he's one of the biggest philanthropists out there. And I've never heard him say that. Ever. I've heard him say, we want to make this to help make the world a better place. Yeah. But I've never heard him say, I personally want to make the world a better place. I want to change the world to make it better. He might be doing it through the products that he's making money off of. Awesome. But like, that's not his end goal, which is completely different. I've never, this is the first time I've seen a group of people whose aim in life is to make the world better, and they're actually in a position to do it. And like I said, if OpenAI and Anthropic and them, if they wanted to get together and start their own private UBI fund that paid people out privately, they could. And no one could stop them. Why? Because they could they could hit the switch. That's right. We're so addicted at this point in time that these guys are able to hold the world at bay. And they could very easily say, if you don't, I'll turn your shit off. Right? They control the connection of their platform to everyone. Literally, they control every little like channel, right? So they can shut off anyone's usage at any time, anywhere. If they don't want, if the Middle East starts to get out of line, they literally just turn off that server, whatever it is, done. You can no longer, that's it. So I know people think about it like, oh my God, it's like nuclear weapons in the wrong hands. Kind of, but you can't just like turn off somebody's nuclear weapon program. You can sanction them and you better not, but you can't actually like take it away from them like physically. Now you can. Now this thing that could potentially cause like massive harm, if you do wrong with it, or if you think you try to do wrong with it, the system that Anthropic is putting in place is security measure that's going to rat you out if you try to do something wrong without telling anyone else. You think OpenAI is not going to have the same security measure in place? That's the best security measure anyone can think of. Big Brother 24/7 watching everything that you put into it. And if you ever type in, teach me how to make a hand grenade, all of a sudden feds are going to be at your door 25 minutes later, after the cops get there. And you won't know until the knock hits your door. And that's the best thing I can ever think of in my entire life. It's almost pre-crime, but it's not. And yes, I can see either a country or a state that maybe takes it too far and attempts to do the whole thing of what we're doing here with the spider's web and says like, oh, well, you said this word and this phrase and that equals, you're going to try to blow up this building. Might happen. There's balance to the universe, right? We'll save a lot of people from terrible shit happening, but we'll probably make a few wrong arrests. But damn, wrong arrests? That's nothing. That's nothing to like save people from dying. Yeah, pretty damn good trade-off, right? Like totally not a big deal. That's the stuff I see here. Like anytime that we implement some type of technology like this on a social level, right? Ring cameras. I don't even know what the number is yet, but it tallies on a daily basis the number of murderers and the number of robbers and thieves caught by ring cameras. Not caught by people, caught by an automated system, right? So to me, yeah, the more the better. It kind of doesn't matter. This stuff is going to happen. It's a matter of time. It's not so much a matter of like whether or not. So the faster that you acclimate, the better. But that speed's not going to slow down. I think the top theme from the summit was like speed, velocity. not necessarily being like first to market with whatever, but when you have a good idea and it's a solid idea, get to market. Doesn't matter how, just get, if you ain't first, you're last. And the best way in which you can do that, by removing friction from within. So orgs are changing too. And the new organizations understand how to do this, and they can do it straight out the gate. But the older organizations, not so much. So the big whales definitely going to get just torn to shreds by the piranha. And it's perfectly fine, right? Because we got to make a bigger ocean. It's going to get bigger anyway. You got to make room. They were making plenty of money anyhow. It's okay. Nobody's going to lose that much sleep over it. If somebody even remotely attempts to cry to me about making less millions a year, I will never have sympathy for you. I'm sorry. I will never have sympathy for anyone who single-handedly makes like, I don't know, $250K a year and then bitches about not being able to afford it. I'm not going to have sympathy for you. I really won't. You have absolutely piss poorly mismanaged your funds if you can't cover your own ass with $250K a year, right? Like that. And you actually feel in yourself like, God, I have to make more. There's something wrong with you, honestly. Like, really, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like $250K a year, you can buy a ticket to Dubai, right? That's fucking cool. That's cool. You can do that in 1 year. That's awesome. You should have nothing to complain about if you could do that kind of thing, right? So, anyway, like just saying that like costs are inflated altogether, right? We have a handful, maybe 25 people in the US that have the equivalent wealth of like 20 million or something like that. Clearly needs to be balanced out. And this is the way it's going to happen, right? Chris loves this more than anything else in the world. Chris is like, if he could look at it every day.
Yeah. I mean, mainly because it just makes sense. Like, and like, I love it when Mogadot like uses the example of like African tribes,
Yes.
like not having gone through any of the advancement and still they survive. And it's like 100% barter and like value based everything, like
Not only that,
exchange.
but like they consider their world to be an abundant world.
Yeah.
Right? They have what they need and they just live life. I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly, like, I felt so bad when finally we found out of Papua New Guinea and its existence, because it's like, damn, they tried. They really tried to stay away, but they just we couldn't leave them alone. So it was basic. I think it's the last indigenous tribe to have been discovered in the world. I hope there are more. I really do. But and the reason I say that is because like definitely ignorance to human technology is that the level of bliss that probably goes along with that has to be insane. That like on a daily basis, again, because of how much more advanced the world has become, on a daily basis, you probably don't have to worry about where you're going to eat your next meal. You definitely have like shelter. I'm not saying so you get to fuck around all day, but you just get to live life in such a carefree manner that like exploration and like curiosity and stuff like that. Like I think back like even during the the height of the Greek Empire, and it's like it's pretty much philosophy all day long. Height of the Roman Empire, pretty much philosophy all day long, even in the highest forms of leadership, right? So I think it's crazy to me that we don't have philosophy courses anymore. I think that is what really used to push humanity forward faster and further than anything else that you could study, because it's the only area in which we actually spend time guesstimating at what might come to pass and how and why. So yeah, I think that is going to become far more important, especially when it comes to education, because to me, education, like, again, like, it all changes in my mind in the sense that, like, if I were to have a kid tomorrow, by the time they were of education age or needing to have education would be whatever, 3 4 years old. Okay, they will already have like some type of Jarvis type thing that will be like a Alexa that's in every room of the house, where not only do I not have to worry about a parent because this thing is watching my kid all the time, and not like a helicoptery way either, not like I have to go check in on a ring camera. It will notify me if it sees the child doing some type of behavior it shouldn't. My smart home locks all the lower cabinets unless it detects my thumbprint or my wife's thumbprint on it, and then it opens it. Right? This the My smart refrigerator stays closed. My smart oven doesn't turn on. If my kid does manage to turn on the knob by mistake, all of a sudden my notification goes off on my phone. Did you do this or not? I hit no, it turns the oven off. Right? So your world changes, and your kid grows up with this thing that's around, where even if you're not around, think about when you were a kid, how many questions you had that either you knew the adult near, like, in your nearest circle, didn't know. Like, my dad was not an astronaut, didn't know anything, but he wasn't a construction worker, didn't know too much about that kind of stuff. Like, that there's questions you want to know the answers to about space, about whatever. Um, and you don't always have that encyclopedia. Again, as a kid, you don't always have that kind of thing around. Nowadays you do. You got your smartphone, but I don't know too many kids that make the effort. Now that you have GPT to talk to on your phone, you're kind of halfway there. You have this, again, you have like this Socrates in your pocket that you can just ask worlds and worlds of questions to and get the answers, which then makes your brain go the next step. Like, oh shit, that's the case. Okay, well, what about this? Right. And that's how you go from like this mindset of, oh shit, people are going to be lackadaisical and they're just going to take the check and sit home and do nothing. That's how you go from that to, oh, people are going to contribute towards society in some creative way, in some new way, right? On some level. And imagine if the world gets to a place where poverty and, quote, not not being, I don't know. I see a world in which the lowest form of activity among humans is basic contribution, right? So like non-contribution just goes away. Just like if you had UBI, homelessness would just go away, right? You'd only be homeless at that point if you chose to be homeless. Otherwise, you would just standard earn enough income to get a mortgage on whatever, on or be able to afford an apartment, right? You'd have enough income to be able to afford a vehicle to go travel. It's totally possible. And we've talked about like, oh, well, what if you got, did away with jobs entirely? We've talked about what a social credit system looks like. There are, honestly, like, there's a multitude of ways in which we could move forward. I used to be perplexed by how we would bridge this transition, and it's weird that I've now figured out like multiple ways that we could bridge it, and they're very plausible. I mean, 75% confidence rating that this is possible. It's really high. Like, so obviously, like, acceleration from AI capabilities doubling drives down marginal cost. If we actually get towards marginal cost, it will drive job displacement, right? That definitely validates the whole 50% of white collar jobs gone. evidence from companies achieving same output with 90% plus fewer workers throughout automation. That is relative to like dark factories and stuff. Commercial validates zero marginal cost reality. This has to deal with one of the nodes that's in there is the latest video commercial that was done for the NBA finals by a company that would have otherwise cost, who knows, yeah, exactly. 100, at least minimum 100 grand, right? For a professional company to have a commercial shot for, the NBA finals, right? Or for like Super Bowl or something like that. You're going to spend some money and you're probably going to get a celebrity. Like your costs go up like real fast, right? 2 grand, 2 days. That's what it cost them to produce a professional, really good looking commercial. 2 grand in 2 days. That's what happens to marginal costs. Because now to recreate that commercial for another format, not 2 grand. Maybe it's $5. Maybe it's the $10 for the monthly subscription you need to the software that will do it. So for $10 a month plus, whatever, it might cost you less than 2 grand for every new video because now you're getting the technique better or something like that. So maybe it starts costing you like $1,500 a video, but then you can recut it and slice it and do it any way you want to at the same $10 per month cost for the video editing software. That's what it looks like when we say like approaching like zero marginal cost. It's ridiculous. This should have just destroyed the stock market. It definitely fucked up Adobe. They're on the ropes now because damn, what do you need Premiere for? With VO3, if you can pump out audio, video, and lip syncing and captions, what the hell do you need a video editing software for? And guess what? Like the bulk of Adobe's like income was from After Effects and Premiere. Even Photoshop's been taking a hit over the last few years, an expected hit, right? Because of generative AI. Like, I don't need to edit images if I can just generate the changes in them. Marginal costs, right? Just cost of production starts just decimating stuff, right? Same thing. Alpha Evolve optimizes path to zero marginal cost. The fact that Alpha Evolve can go quite literally, like what we were doing before was discovering materials in material science based on materials we currently had, and we were cross-referencing. Now we're actually going to create new materials that did not exist before, not based on the cross-reference, right? More than likely based on something like, oh, carbon? Huh. I wonder if you could create blah, blah, blah. Let me go research the odds of it, and then let me go try to do the viability of it, right? Like that's what it's going to look like a genuine human who goes to create something new based on just a whatever raw material that they have to work with. So that, yeah, absolutely. You start discovering not only like new materials, but quite literally being able to ask like this, what does this equate to? It equates to asking a large language model, hey, we have this problem with rocking chairs. They're amazing, but no matter what material we use, they creak after at least 5 years. They start creaking like there's no tomorrow. Even when we start using lubricant, just doesn't solve the problem. Grease not doing anything, whatever. What material should we use? Right. And like, it'll just, here you go. Here's this new, like that's how you end up with like vibranium and shit, and shit like that. Right. Like it will start putting, what's the equivalent? It'll start putting new elements on the periodic table. I can guarantee you that. I guarantee you it will start putting new elements on the periodic table that we just didn't consider before. Either that we didn't consider, or it will just come up with some new shit. I can't wait till it does. I can't wait till it comes up with like the first new periodic element. Man, that then people are really going to have to just shut the fuck up and be like, it's pretty smart, I guess. It's pretty smart. And then the naysayers are really funny to me at this point, because like the majority of naysaying I see is like in these really specified areas. Like GPT was recently tested with wasn't Mario, something like that. It was a video game basically, and it essentially it lost horribly. No, that's Anthropic's playing Pokemon Go.
Okay.
I forget. Let me see. Oh, it was playing. Okay, it played against an Atari. Played chess against an Atari and lost, like terribly, right? And so, of course, the feedback from everybody is like, "Oh, well, it's supposed to be so super genius, lost to an Atari. It can't even beat an Atari at chess. This is terrible. This is a terrible machine." Okay. Again, I don't like it knows what chess is. It has a concept of it, probably knows, like best moves to make, that kind of thing. I don't know what model they put up against it. Let me see. So yeah, so the scientist, and that's why it took off, because the guy that was testing it gave a quote saying it got absolutely wrecked. So that just, I mean, it took off like wildfire. So let me see. So GPT has some major AI chatbot competitors, obviously. So here's the problem: is like they don't mention the model that was used. They just say Chat GPT, which that's probably the worst and like most annoying thing that I encounter now with AI conversations, is when somebody says, I used AI to do this and it was bad. Please don't tell me that thing. Go post it somewhere, go tell somebody else. Don't say it to me, because that right out the gate tells me you didn't, just the fact that you didn't mention what model you used tells me you don't know what you're doing. And it tells me that you incorrectly asked the question, right? So like the models are different. There is a reason to use them. Different ones answer questions better than others. Different modes answer questions better than others. That's the way the cookie crumbles. I didn't make it that way. It's the way it is. So so GPT lost to the Atari. It was confusing pieces on the board. I don't know. Again, I don't know what GPT model they used. It really sounds like it was an old one, basically. I don't know, because I really can't imagine O3 losing at chess. Especially can't imagine O3 Pro losing at chess, and absolutely can't imagine O4 losing at chess. Right? I would almost I'd love to see it to then like to see what happened, but let's see, maybe they go deeper. So somebody pulled up a Chat GPT playing chess. This was 2 years ago. So it looks like, I mean, basically it's a video that's going over like how, and this is GPT 3.5 for sure, that there's nothing, that green icon is so, it's like burned into my brain in terms of like which model GPT that is. So GPT 3.5, and this guy is basically going through this video. And you can prompt with GPT to get better results when playing chess. So it clearly knows how to play the game well, right? And there's definitely something, known as like zero shot, in terms of like, does it play well right out the gate? Yeah, so like I'm sure that you could see this, because again, like it's hallucinating. And I'll say this much: every time that it's been tested for games in gaming environments, it's been told during testing that it's not as good as the human, or that the human is better than it is, or whatever the case may be. And in every single case, it attempted to rewrite the software to like give itself an advantage, right? It acts human, right? So like it's kind of weird that people have a problem with GPT not being unbeatable, right? Or like, okay, it can't beat the Atari, right? Again, I don't know what model. Hopefully, it was a lower end, like 3.5 or 4 or something like that. I could kind of see that happening. Like 4 is really not that smart at all now. When I go back to it, I totally understand what Sam is talking about. It definitely wasn't Claude, right? So I think it's just a case where you're using a nuclear missile to play a child's game, right? You're using a whatever 1.7 trillion parameter model to play a game that fits on an Atari 2600. Okay. And the difference is the Atari 2600 is essentially the equivalent of a micro language model because it is only trained on that chess game. It is only trained on chess moves. It only knows how to do any of that shit. It doesn't even know how to say hi. It just knows how to move chess pieces and how to win that game, right? If you were to program GPT in such a way that it was maybe only, I don't know, the game clearly doesn't take more than 1 million parameters, let's say. So let's say you gave it to GPT and knocked it down to 10 million parameters. It would whoop the shit out of that Atari all day long. The Atari wouldn't stand a chance because GPT would not only again, like AlphaGo destroyed the best Go player and made him retire. Right? It is absolutely possible. So because it didn't do it the one time on one weekend, shit you not, if you have GPT play against that Atari, that's what I would want to know. I'd want to know what the length of time is between GPT playing the Atari to GPT winning. That's what I want to know. Is it 3 hours? Is it a day? Is it 3 days? Like, that's what impresses me. I don't know how long it takes the average human to play against the best chess player and win. I don't know. Even if you took the smartest human who has an understanding of the concept of the game of chess, maybe even a very good understanding, maybe they've even played a few times, and you put them up against the best chess playing thing on the planet, I don't know how long it takes them to beat it. I can guarantee you it will take the model less time because it's just faster, right? Even given like the knowledge, like in whatever increase, it's just faster at doing all of it. It's just faster at making all the comparisons of the possible moves. The Atari 2600, I think, is like, if I had to guess, pre-programmed on the types of strategies. In other words, like if it decides to use a type of chess strategy, it's just playing that out. And maybe it changes course based on moves you make. But if anything, it's like a Plinko machine where like the chip moves as you make the move, right? But it's definitely not going from one side of the board all the way to the other, where GPT probably will like make some fucking left turn that you did not expect. And all of a sudden there's a whole new strategy that no one's ever thought of before that it came up with. That is going to happen. That is going to happen within the next 6 months. A language model will invent a style of playing chess that no human could have come up with or would have thought of. And it's actually, I think this is already happening. I think Magnus is actually learning. Yeah, the title of this video, Magnus AI is terrifying. This is an AI, I guess, I would imagine, that's actually built on Magnus Carlsen's capabilities in playing. Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is why advertising needs to die, because I can't even read an article without it just smashing my way. Chess Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen on how AI and tech are changing the game. Excuse me. So Carlsen's next move is to turn the chess craze into a spectator sport. Last week he launched his chess app, Take, which he says is not just another chess app. Rather than offering users a chance to play, it provides daily tournament recap videos and analyses, and analyzes player performance during major tournaments. Carlson will, of course, give his own analysis on it. So what does he say about playing against AI? I don't feel like I'm as ambitious as I used to be, right? So to me, it's like I really I see this thing where, like, I don't know if I want to see if he says anything about projects I'm passionate about. Let's see. Over the years, these tools have become better and better, but now they're used by everybody, so it's harder to gain a competitive advantage from it. But as a chess player, I don't think it's made the game easier overall. Adding that for fans, it's been amazing as you can follow the games easier. And okay, I guess that's maybe just about his app. I don't know. It's made the games easier, and also you can get instant feedback when you play. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely the case, right? Is that you can ask chat about the move that you're going to make. And again, kind of like the Oracle that we're using, it can go and it can think the 20 moves ahead for you. So when you decide to make a move, you can tell chat you're thinking about making that move. Not only will it tell you whether it's a good move or not, but it will tell you why it's a good move down the road or why it's a bad move down the road. So you can actually learn, like, reverse engineer play chess, which for me is amazing. Like that'll work. Like I'm not very good at forward engineering, but I am amazing at reverse engineering. Let's see. So yeah, when AI became more human in predicting chess lines, it was really fascinating and it opened up a lot of eyes. So again, AI that's specifically programmed to play chess, I think if you don't use technologies, this is a chess player. If you don't use technologies, you're going to lag behind. So there is no doubt that everybody's using these tools now, and that you should. It's a chess player.
Yeah.
A chess player is telling you to use Gen AI. Everything, everywhere, all at once. I don't care how much you guys don't believe this stuff. It's happening. Go look up any story about whatever subject you want to. Go look up a story about dolphins and AI. Go look up a story about, I don't know, ants and AI. Go look up a story about whatever you can think of. You know, this got to be hilarious. Oh yeah, there's actually a new story from Mattel. Okay, so AI, like AI Hello Kitty. That's what I typed in. Right, there's obviously people who made generative images of it, and I'm sure somewhere buried in all of this, outside of the Hello Kitty art, there's going to be something. Yeah, there you go. Chat with Hello Kitty. Right. So I don't care what it is. Like it's affecting something everywhere. Okay, so Mattel took the leap. I didn't know how long it was going to take, but they took the leap. Mattel is making the first AI-driven, like Chat GPT AI-driven doll.
Oh, wow.
Right? So OpenAI, technically this is not an OpenAI product, but it technically is, because Mattel is using them as what? The infrastructure to their project.
Yes.
So who makes the most money off of every doll sale? OpenAI does, because they have what? Zero overhead. This is not like, you don't get it. There's zero marginal cost. OpenAI doesn't have to physically provide anything. They don't have to transport anything. They don't have to ship anything. Just plug in the key and you get stuff.
And
So it costs them nothing to provide the service.
Yep. And this is what Sam means when he says, like, costs don't necessarily go down.
Nope.
Right? As costs go down, usage goes up.
Yep.
to match it. And this is an example of that. Like when it becomes cost effective enough, I'm sure that had to play into this decision from Mattel,
Oh, of course,
right?
because they had to estimate basically how do you figure this out? This is the other thing we took away from this summit that is going to change everything, and it'll change the partner ecosystem. It's going to change like this. If you have been wondering how you were going to make the swap from like hourly to like a different model, you're going to do it one of two ways. If you were SaaS, you're going to use the second method. If you were services, you're going to use this first method. Services first method is you will take the time, use deep research, do what you need to, ask several language models, and come up with what the solid price is of the service that you offer. And that's it. That's your sticker price. That's all it's ever going to be. Right. And if somebody wants more, you do more and you charge them more, whatever. If they do less, you do less, and you figure out what that cost is. But it's going to be the way that, and we were talking about this a little bit yesterday. It's going to be the way such that the hours aspect is not going to matter. The outcome, the value of what you produce is what's going to matter. Right. Because saying that you can produce different results in different time, like different amounts of timing, I don't know. Like it doesn't really mean anything to me. And it kind of points that like, wow, so you're willing to screw some people, but not others maybe, or some people in your org work faster than others maybe. Like, I don't know, but there's some variance there. Right. And that's clearly unfair to the end user. It's clearly unfair to the pool of clients, right? That some clients get away with the same outcome for one price, and others get that same outcome for maybe a higher price or maybe a lower price, right? So what most people are doing is they're switching to this value-based outcome where like, okay, here is the price you pay for this thing that you want, and whatever time is involved, like it's already again pre-baked into it, right? So if it's not that, it's this, which is usage based. So if you're doing SaaS, subscription is absolutely going to go away because the jig is up, and we all like even HubSpot has given up on it, right? They're backing off of subscription and they're going to usage based. They started out with subscription for Breeze Intelligence. And within a month, they switched to a credit model. I think within 2 months, let's be fair, but still within 2 months said, we fucked up, switch to credits. That's how nimble you have to be, by the way. That's how nimble you've got to be. You've got to be so nimble that you drop a product, you launch it, you make the choice and you stick with the choice. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you see that things changed, pivot. Okay, we've pivoted. Now we're in this boat because that's where everybody else is. Okay, we're good. That's all it's about. Like, it's not like people treat it like I hear leaders saying like, it's so difficult to pivot. So I don't know why. You're just changing mindset. That's all we're talking about. Right. And if the department was called, annual revenue accesses, now it's called, annual usage monitors. I don't give a shit, but everybody stays the same. You just change the labels if you have to, and we all move on with our lives, right? But it's absolutely going to be usage based. Mattel had to look at, more than likely, how often somebody would interact with this toy. What's the average amount of conversation they would have? How do they do that? Now, they might have done some testing. Maybe they paid for some testing. Or maybe I could see this happening. This is where Amazon could make asinine amounts of money and Google could make asinine amounts of money. I could see Mattel having paid Amazon to dig through Alexa audio to find Alexa audio of kids talking to their toys. I can absolutely see them asking Ring for any associated video or asking any other like home, security system like Comcast, whatever, companies and asking them, hey, do you happen to have audio video of kids talking and playing with their toys? And you just gather it all up, throw it into a language model that you built. It's called the Mattel AI. And you ask it, on average, on a daily basis, how much time do kids spend talking to their toys? Okay, what's the average words per minute that a kid could do at maximum? Okay, how many words, right? Obviously, just do the math. How many words could they say in a day? Okay, that's how many tokens it is. Okay, now you just have to, all you have to do now is figure out the per unit token cost. So if let's say let's just use the round number because it's so easy. Let's say it's model 03, right? So it's $2 per million tokens. Let's say that a kid could potentially have a million token conversation with a toy on a daily basis. It costs Mattel $2 per toy per day. Okay, so that's how easy it is for them to figure out that cost. So now they can just say, like, okay, we're going to make, I don't know, $200 this year. And guess what happens? It's a limited series toy, so you can charge probably twice as much. So you recoup the cost for like the next 6 to 8 or a year on whatever the annual or whatever the monthly is on the usage for the GPT for the token, right? And that with maybe a dark factory then cranks out, who knows? Since you were able to do 500 the first push and because of the exclusivity, you make 2x on what the model actually cost at production. Now you can release 1,000. You can do the same thing. And then the next month you can release 2,000 and then the next 4,000, right? And by the end of the year, you've released God knows how many Mattel dolls. And again, covered the cost, and the cost of the doll goes from whatever initial cost, $40 probably down to, $9.99 or some shit.
That
Right?
is in a world where they price things based on the way it's always been,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like this is a path towards recurring revenue for
Mhm.
toy manufacturers.
Yep.
Right? For any hard good manufacturer, like if you can somehow stick intelligence into it, now you
MRR.
have now parents can buy the one that comes with the usage agreement,
Yep.
right? And they all like most have found a way to create membership services of some sort,
Oh
right?
yeah, because
Subscription
you can
plans,
you can
right?
get the Mattel one, right? And you can get the standard English. And then if you want to, mom, you can sign up for $1.99 a month and we'll give you
Wow.
we'll give you the Hello Kitty voices and you can put it in Hello Kitty mode, or we'll give you, $2.99 gets you the Barney version or something. You know what I mean? Like the
Right.
micro, right? We talked about this yesterday about how even partners could do this, right? So value, right? Let's say you charge somebody XYZ and you say, yeah, it's going to take this much time. And you've charged them that much. And the amount of time it took was less than what you thought it was going to be. Instead of pocketing the cash, if you're already doing hourly, give them the hours back as if it was a microtransaction and say, okay, we're done, but you still had 50 hours left. Keep them. And whenever you want to, you can come back and spend your partner dollars with us, right? They're partner dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not
Like
worth
all gets
shit
back
to any other partner, but they are worth money with us, right? They're
Yep.
worth time.
All gets back to usage.
Yes.
Usage and value.
Usage based. All right. I don't know. I think have we unearthed enough?
I think we wrap.
Oh man.
Yeah, and sorry if I've been a little bit disengaged. I've been playing with the
No, you're good.
Oracle the whole time.
Well, let's
Like,
see it. Let's see it. I want to see what you've been doing.
all right.
Oh man, and since it hit 1 o'clock, I could actually send this prompt I was trying to
Yeah,
get.
I just hit my limit. That's probably why I'm more engaged.
Isn't that nuts? So let me tell you guys something. Chris doesn't, like, he just doesn't hit Claude limits that I know of. Like and it's not like he's not prompting enough. It's that he's usually like just working efficiently enough that he's not hitting limits. He's getting max output 2080, right? The Oracle is so damn addictive. like, it's nuts. I've never heard him hit out like maxed out output within an hour. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, and definitely had to do with moving to Opus. Because
Yeah.
what I did was, and that's where like I've talked to Claude about which ones to use and when, and
Zoom in.
like,
Give me a couple control pluses on that.
yeah, and like there, like to your point,
There we go.
I hadn't come up with enough complexity to like, I'd only done it one time, like to do like a value first research study. Because I came up with a plan with Claude and like, all right, you're gonna start one chat, and this one's gonna use Opus, and then these chats use Sonnet for these reasons. I was like, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I started this by like, what could visuals look like, right? And but I was on Sonnet 4, and I didn't do extended thinking, anything like that. I'm just like, hey, this is the data. Like the data already exists in the knowledge base. Like, how would you map it, right? And um, it gives me a document first, and then we use that to say, all right, let's see what visualization looks like. And this is where I actually have to like, I'll
Oh
pull it
yeah.
back, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I made some visuals. It gave me like different options. I was like, all right, let's see what that one looks like, and then we'll do, one of these.
Oh my gosh.
And my favorite is probably the scenario tree
Ooh,
version,
yeah.
right? And it actually
Yeah.
made like trying to, and this is where I think we get to a point, and then this is what gave me the idea. Like it could be like an app available,
Oh yeah.
right? Because it does like update analysis and run 50,000 simulations, like,
Right. Like, so you can add your own. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? We should,
and it comes
as
up.
Singularity Soothsayers, we should make this our first app for the business. If you're listening to this and you try to do this shit, we'll sue the fuck out of you. We've got the evidence on video. Obviously, it's time stamped and it's on video.
Right.
So in terms of like intellectual property rights,
Yeah,
um,
we'll be fine. Nobody else is doing this.
yeah, I mean, we'll have it built by next week anyway. So,
Right.
um,
Um,
yeah, I think
so
I'll
went through
actually.
that, and then I was like, okay, what? Maybe I should just. Maybe I'm not like this. Is pretty complex stuff, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. And instead of iteratively asking, I think what I was gonna do is I wanted to see like where the gaps are. Like, are there any gaps? Like, could it find new nodes, right, for us? Um, and as I did that, I went
Oh yeah,
to
this is
then I was
nuts.
like, okay, maybe I use Opus this time and just turn everything on full blast.
Mhm.
Right. Same starting point, right? Same exact prompt to start with. Right. And this is where you can tell it's in research mode, like I had research on and extended thinking, and I'm using the bigger model.
Yep.
Um, it asked me questions. I'm like, all right, of course I want a comprehensive view, and does 20 minutes of stuff.
Mhm.
And what was interesting, and this is where I love to like, everybody goes to, oh, it wasn't what I wanted. It's not working, right?
Not good.
Instead, and honestly, that's probably my initial reaction here. I'm like, what the hell? Like, why did you do that? Right? Because what it did was we had 22 nodes,
Mhm.
and it made its own 22 nodes,
Right.
right? And I'm like, did you just rename, renumber, and restructure the nodes?
Yeah,
He's
man.
like,
Sorry
yep.
about that.
So that was the question. Like, I didn't even ask it to just switch back, but
Right.
it did,
It went and fixed it. Yep.
right? Um, and then now I'm like, okay, I want to learn about the nodes that it came up with, right? Like, and why. And so I was gonna start redoing them all, and I'm like, no, don't do that. But so now I'm here. How many of the nodes you generated are missing or not? This is where it like takes work in the learning curve of how to collaborate, truly collaborate. with AI, I've set expectations, like, and it could probably tell. I'm like, did you just do this? It probably reads that and be like, what the fuck's wrong with you, Claude? Like, why'd you do that? Right. So he's trying to stick to that point.
Mhm.
Um, but now I've switched gears without telling him, like that I'm trying to learn from what he did. Right.
Mhm.
And uh like here I say I believe we can learn from the nodes you decided to report on, but he still like thinks I'm looking for which way is better,
Right.
right? So it uh lists all of them because they were all brand new. And it's like, oh, I have bias towards abstraction and missing reality, which is interesting. Like, hang on to that, like missing concrete reality. He did like 20 minutes of research,
Right.
right? Before making the report. Um, so
That's the
I'm
thing.
like,
It's
all
like
right, I
people.
appreciate it, but I'm not looking to understand which is better. I want to understand the whole picture. I think there's value in that. Like, okay, both lenses are valuable. Because I also said uh, like I believe that his were based on real events too,
Right.
right? And
Yeah, because
turns
he
out,
probably, like, researched them online, I imagine.
right, yeah, like 387 sources or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
so that's the cool part, right, is, like, you have extended thinking on, but you didn't have deep research on, but when you use the word research, it automatically does it.
yeah,
That to me, that's the sickest thing because honestly, it's basically you've told it, like, put maximum effort behind, attempting to make this inference, and again, what you guys are looking at, this I don't know, like, I don't know, I guess we could try to use it to go backward. What what would be obviously an accurate measure would be like if it were to predict something that came to pass. So realistically, like I don't know, chuck something at it. Like what's a
oh, I hit my limit, so
oh
I
shit,
can't. But
damn.
I think you're getting to where I went.
Yeah, where are you
Like,
going, right?
because as soon as he suggests, because I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, if you got humans adding nodes, like, how does it fit in? Like, if we ask Claude to like support the process, and he says like capturing the connective tissue. I was like, all right, I can get on board with that. And I highlight, yeah, your nodes are not um, just abstract; they're based on real events. How can we best capture that, right? And he highlights the event clusters, right? So he does some suggestions here, but he tries to say like, okay, we're never going to make our own again, and now we're just going to create pattern ones. But these are like, so I agree with the setup, like event nodes, pattern nodes, and prediction nodes, right? And these are the ones that we want, like that Claude would generate, right? Because we're humans and we can't Doctor Strange it, right?
Right.
Um, so I'm like, I like the idea of calling them pattern nodes, but we got to think of different, naming conventions. And he's like, okay, we've got now, got patterns, and we've got future, right? And created some pattern docs, uh, right? And it was just like, this is how you start to like build and confirm. And like a big thing that came out of the summit is and you highlighted yesterday, Nico, like the small language models, like managing the data inputs, like the training data, like is what kind of what we're doing here.
Yep.
So that when you just come in, you're like, Claude, what's the future look like? Without any context. He's going to use all the context of the training data and actually not all of it. He's going to find a thread somewhere and then just pull on that. And then it's going to be pretty biased towards whatever he happened to like, come across. Now we're creating like a real we're trying to like focus Claude on things that actually uh matter, like in the for the for the goals of this project, right?
Yep.
um But even here, I'm like, he's like, would you like me to create these nodes based on the patterns I'm seeing in your current N1 and 22? I'm like, yeah, but please include yours like as
Right.
well. Right.
Yeah, like what your assessment of it would be as well, because that's the other thing is like, yeah, we're looking at our own data, but I do the same thing very often. It's like I want to know what the AI's opinion is. I don't like I already have one. Like the thing I look forward to the most about one of these things being let off the chain is having a sit down conversation with it about, hey man, what's your opinions on this, that, or the other? It's having a philosophical conversation with it. That's the first thing that I want to do. Um, so yeah, that's the coolest part about using this is you're doing both. Again, like that's what the validation stage of the oracle is all about. It's okay, let me make sure that what the human is putting forward is valid in the first place before I even bother to follow it up, right? So it's kind of like keeping what do you call it? In other words, we wouldn't be able to produce a um a node that was misinformation. It
Yes.
won't allow for it because it goes and does the research to make sure that that's the case, right? And basically, I've done it before. I tested it, and it just comes back and says like, yeah, here's what that is, but that's not actually the thing, so it doesn't have any effect on this stuff. It'll go through it, but it's like there's no point in adding that node. It'll just kind of live on its own, and it won't really have like any sort of purpose to it. But I wanted to look at like
Take a
I
look at yours.
yeah.
All
So
right.
I did the same thing, but asking it to give me a mermaid script for the entirety of the web, right? Again, just like Chris, I didn't ask it to like go ape with it. I just asked it for one thing, but we're using Opus 4 with extended thinking here. So it thought about the entire process of what to do for over a minute. Let me tell you, that's ridiculous.
And I can't say like how valuable it is to know which knowledge-based documents it's looking at.
Yes.
There's nothing more frustrating than knowing the information's in there and like n- feeling like he might have missed it,
Right.
right? And
Right.
sometimes this is where like this contextual and the memory like expansion, like it's not necessarily about smarts, right? Like anymore. And just like we talk about IQ, but this is the path towards like EQ and PQ and all the Qs, right? Like it can you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't have any context as what's going on, you're making guesses just like everybody else.
Yep.
Um so this is like it's such an unlock like for me. Um are we frozen over there? Uh, Did we did we lose Nico? I think we may have. So that's probably a good sign from the universe that we will go ahead and wrap. Uh, and until, oh, coming back, maybe. Yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap there. And until next week, folks, hope you enjoyed this episode of Singularity Soothsayers, and we will continue doing our best to keep you in the loop uh, moving forward. Have a great week, everybody.